podcast, we will be starting on our discussion of New Indian cinema. New Indian cinema was inaugurated in 1969 with a film in Hindi called Bhuvan Shom by the Bengali director Mrinal Sen. First, we must ask ourselves, what do we mean when we use the term New Indian cinema? Perhaps no one has put it better than Raghunath Raina, a seasoned bureaucrat who was in the 60s and 70s with the Directorate of Film Festivals. Writing in the summer of 1981, Raghunath Raina explained, and here I quote Mr. Raina, "The emergence of the New Indian cinema in the late 60s as a recognizable movement was partly a reaction to the popular cinema's otherworldliness. But perhaps the main forces behind it were the democratic and developmental processes set off after India's independence. These evoked a new awareness and led to an exploration of the seemingly imperceptible changes in a traditional society under the impact of modernizing influences. This resulted in a re-examination, however tentative, of an entire value system. A continuous, deepening exploration of life in India's changing context has been the main concern of the new cinema. Its preoccupation is with the growing contradictions of a society in which large sections of the people, long used to passive acceptance, have meanwhile become politicized." As I told you, the first film in this body of work was made in 1969. This was a time of great social and political turmoil. There was widespread popular resentment at certain developments, which seemed to nullify the promises of the nationalist movement and the promises in the Indian Constitution. In other words, the rich were becoming richer, the poor poorer. The process continues to this day, but then it was the first attempt by certain filmmakers to focus widespread problems like increasing corruption, refusal of feudalism to go away, the waywardness of the bureaucrats and the moneyed elite. All this was produced a new kind of audience who reacted, responded to what these new directors were saying in their films. It was serious cinema, but often it was seriously entertaining cinema. As I have held, and many others also hold the same position, it is futile to think that entertainment must be shallow, stupid, frivolous. Entertainment can also be very serious. It can provide food for thought and even chart out a course of action. People like Mrinal Sen, Shyam Benegal, Mani Kaul, Avtar Kaul, M.S. Satyu, Rabindra Dharmaraj, Saeed Mirza, or Govind Nihalani, all working in Hindi and using the western parts of the country in one way or another, brought New Indian cinema to the fore. Now, since the movement started by common consent, I mean, it's unanimously accepted that the movement started with Bhuvan Shom. We will devote some time to the man, the director, to the film, the story, the content, the technical inputs. The story is about a true blue bureaucrat. He's in the railways. He is deadly serious. He goes for a duck hunt in the Gujarat shoreline. There, he befriends a young woman, a married young woman whose husband is in the railways. He's a ticket collector, and he's facing dismissal because of some impropriety. The papers, as the narrative unfolds, we come to know regarding that case, are with this bureaucrat played by Utpal Dutt. How this young woman, in a sense, humanizes this tough bureaucrat, tames him. This is the story. Suhasini Mule, this was her first film, gave a moving account as the young woman. And this film gained much from the cinematography of K.K. Mahajan. This is a film that has stood the test of time. Mrinal Sen made several important films prior to Bhuvan Shom, two of which are very important. It's a mystery why the director himself has not been expansive about it, when we still are very enthusiastic, the viewers and the critics, about those films. One was in his native Bengali, Baishe Srabon, and he made another film equally important. The second one was called Matiro Manusho in Oriya. Mrinal Sen's position in Indian cinema ought to have earned greater appreciation. Placed between two extremely important figures, Satyajit Ray and Ritik Ghatak, sometimes there is a tendency on the part of some viewers and critics to underplay his considerable contribution to Indian cinema and his very important role in bringing new Indian cinema before the Indian public. This character, this frame of mind, this incessant quest for challenge can only belong to a true artist. The next important figure in New Indian cinema, Western India chapter or Hindi chapter, whatever you call it, he's Basu Chatterjee. Born in Mathura, fluent in Hindi, built like a truck driver, as somebody has said, but who had a keen sense of cinema, thanks to several factors. Long association with the Film Society movement in Bombay, his ability to study human character thanks to his long association with Blitz, the pseudo-radical paper, for a long time as a cartoonist. All this gave him an advantage, in a sense, that others did not have. His first film, Sara Akash, based on a story by the reputed Hindi writer Rajendra Yadav. It was in black and white. It was a tender, moving story about a young girl being married to a young man who is mentally not prepared for marriage. This causes a little bitterness, a little misunderstanding between the two. ultimately it is resolved. You see, the new Indian filmmakers were not only talking about aberrations or anomalies or abuses in the countryside, on the industrial shop floor, or in the marketplace or out in the road. They were also taking their camera into the intimate spaces. And what more intimate space than that which exists to unite or disunite a man and a woman? So, problems of the family. A family has always been made out to be a holy institution in the East, especially in India.
तू घर में छोटी बहू ले आ तो मुझे फुर्सत मिले।
नहीं अम्मा नहीं, मुझे अभी शादी-वादी नहीं करनी। अभी तो मेरी पढ़ाई भी खत्म नहीं हुई है। और फिर शादी के बाद कोई खास कुछ बताएगा? जी अपना फ्यूचर देखना है।
फ्यूचर देखना है। शहजादे अंग्रेजी बोल रहे हैं। तुम्हारा ही तो फ्यूचर है, इस घर का तो कोई फ्यूचर है ही नहीं। मालूम है? मुन्नी की शादी का कर्जा अभी तक ढो रहा हूँ। कहाँ से आएगा ये रुपया? कभी सोचा है? फ्यूचर देखना है।
So it cannot be questioned. No, not for the new Indian filmmakers. They are seeing a lot of things going on behind the veil of sanctity. This is a film which is peeling off like an onion, layers of the whole thing.
लाला जी, शादी ब्याह तो हर एक को करना ही है।
हर एक को मरना भी है, तो अभी से मर जाएं?
कैसी बातें करते हो लाला जी? पढ़ी लिखी लड़की है लाला जी, मैट्रिक पास। हमारे यहाँ 7 पीढ़ी कोई पढ़ी लिखी बहू आई ही नहीं। प्यार की बातें अंग्रेजी में ही कर लिया करना।
मंगलम गरुणध्वजा मंगलम पुंडरीकाक्ष मंगलम।
और इसीलिए देश को साहसी और कर्मठ युवकों की जरूरत है। आज के युवक ही कल के कर्णधार होंगे। याद रखो, तुम में से हर एक को कुछ बनना है। आज भी तुम में से हजारों भगवान बुद्ध, महावीर स्वामी और भगवान राम।
हमारी ही शक्तियाँ आज भगत सिंह, विवेकानंद और नेताजी को पैदा कर सकती हैं, लेकिन इस कुछ बनने के लिए हमें शपथ लेनी होगी। हमारे सामने बहुत सी बाधाएं आएंगी, इन्हीं बाधाओं और मुसीबतों को कुचलकर हमें आगे बढ़ना है।
Yet Basu Chatterjee mysteriously never made a second film that reflected the original agenda, manifesto, the ideas and ideals of New Indian cinema. This is a very sad mystery. From his second film, he shifted over to commercial Hindi cinema. It brought him huge returns. The director's reply also needs to be noticed. What did Basu Chatterjee say? He said, "Well, that's the way I accept life. Yes, I know there's sorrow and misery in this world. I'm part of it. I sense its reality. But still there are moments of beauty too, of pleasure. I feel why not capture that essence and deal with it. Lots of directors deal with suspense, sorrow, morbidity. It makes for variety. My personal philosophy is that life is not full of messages. There are simple elements that give us great happiness. That's what I like to project, the small joys of living." Now we shall pass on to a monumental figure in New Indian cinema, in Indian cinema, in cinema that has made not just film school students aware that in India too we could experiment in a very radical fashion with the language of cinema. I'm referring to Manikal. In this body of work, New Indian cinema, we concern ourselves with a film called Uski Roti, A Day's Bread. This film, among other reasons, is still spoken of as if it is a part, almost as a part of the folklore of New Indian cinema. Satyajit Ray was, he sharply attacked this film. If you read his book, Our Films, Their Films, you will see there that while he speaks highly of films like Ankur and Garam Hawa, the master is very harsh in his criticism of Manikal's Uski Roti and even more Kumar Sahani's Maya Darpan. But you see, such an original talent as Manikal would have aroused only extreme reactions. Many critics in India were amazed at the challenges that Kaul took in this film. Abroad too, it was received with great respect. Derek Malcolm, the distinguished British critic, had this to say of Uski Roti: Kaul is the stern poet of the Indian cinema, who goes his own way regardless. Such a natural filmmaker that even his obfuscations seem resonant, and certainly many of his images remain in the mind. Here was a man who was obstinate in the extreme and who was confident. He knew that he would be able to create a body of work that would get its recognition in time. Certain people are like this. The slow pace at which Uski Roti, the thin narrative, moves makes it a difficult film to watch. In fact, the near absence of a story, as most Indian viewers are used to appreciating cinema, worked against its ready acceptance at that time.
सुच्चा सिंह को मैं बता दूं ना ये सब? मुझसे क्यों पूछ रही है?
The story of a lonely village wife who waits by the roadside for hours to give her husband, a bus driver, his midday meal, is told with the kind of minimalism that did not appeal even to many of Kaul's contemporaries. Kaul is also fondly recalled for other films, for Dubidha, for Sata Se Uthata Admi, which is a personal favorite, based on the writings of Gajanan Muktibodh, whose approach to life tallied with Kaul's in many ways. Now we shall move over to the fourth and last important New Indian filmmaker for discussion in this class. This is another Kaul, Avatar Kaul. He had his film education, like film education abroad, and was able to make only one film, 27 Down, in Hindi. His life was cut short by death in a drowning accident. Such a promising life came to an end. 27 Down is about a railway ticket collector and a daily commuter, a working woman. The role of the collector being played by M.K. Raina, the girl that played by Rakhi. There is a tentative relationship between the two, but finally it does not take any concrete shape because of the vacillations of the man and his inability to stand up to the intimidatory tactics of his father, who represents the very worst, in a sense, that exists in patriarchy.
आप लेडीज में क्यों नहीं चढ़ गए?
वहां तो इस समय ज्यादा भीड़ है।
तो फर्स्ट क्लास में चढ़ जाती।
मेरे पास पास तो थर्ड क्लास के हैं।
तो क्या हुआ? लोकल में कहीं रोज चेकिंग होती है?
मेरे दोनों हाथ एंगेज थे।
ऐसा लग रहा है जैसे उसी संगमरमर की मूर्ति के सामने खड़ा हूं मैं। न उसके हाथ थे, न इसके हाथ हैं। इन दोनों को थैली में रखा कीजिए और एक हाथ खुला छोड़ा कीजिए कि वक्त जरूरत पे काम आया करे।
Sir, what do you think is the attitude of present-day filmmakers or film viewers to New Indian cinema?
You see, New Indian cinema was and is such an important body of work that its relevance to our lives, to the lives of most people in this country, will never go away. So, even if the new filmmakers are doing their kind of thing, in private conversations, you will still see that they salute the example of the new Indian filmmakers. It was they who gave them the courage, the sense of daring. And again, to go back to the new filmmakers of today, that new Indian cinema is still alive. In Bengali, for instance, if you see a film called Herbert by Shuman Mukhopadhyay, you'll see that the courage to talk about the Naxalite movement and to use at the same time a new kind of language, you know, this use of new idiom. All this is illustrative of the fact that New Indian cinema is still alive. It is there in New Marathi cinema, the present edition of New Marathi cinema. In the south, in Kerala, people are doing this kind of thing. So it is still very much there. With this, we come to the end of this class. In our next class, we'll have more things to discuss about New Indian cinema, Western chapter.